The restaurant was dimly lit, with a low hum of chatter filling the air. Plates clinked, silverware scraped, and the aroma of freshly cooked meals wafted through the space. It was just another busy evening at Lyndon's Diner, a small but cozy eatery tucked away in the heart of the city. The kind of place where regulars knew the waitstaff by name, and where newcomers were welcomed with warm smiles. Among the staff was M.I.A. Carter, a hard-working waitress who had been with the diner for nearly 2 years. She was known for her gentle demeanor, her unwavering patience, and a kindness that came naturally. Though she worked long hours and often left exhausted, she found solace in knowing that her job helped keep the lights on at home. Life hadn't been particularly easy for her. Balancing work and her mother's medical bills made things tough, but she pushed forward, refusing to let hardships dim her spirit. That night, as she moved between tables, refilling drinks and taking orders, her attention was drawn to a quiet corner of the restaurant. Seated there was a young boy, no older than 10, with neatly combed brown hair and deep, thoughtful eyes. Beside him sat a tall man, well-dressed in an expensive suit, his presence commanding yet distant. He was flipping through his phone, seemingly disengaged from everything around him, including the boy. M.I.A. immediately noticed something peculiar. The boy was struggling to eat. His small hands trembled as he tried to cut into his meal, his face etched with frustration. It took her only a second to realize what was happening. His hands weren't working properly. She had seen similar cases before, perhaps a condition affecting motor skills. Whatever it was, he needed help. Without hesitation, M.I.A. approached. "Hi there," she greeted with a warm smile, kneeling beside the boy's chair. "Do you need some help?" The boy looked up at her, hesitant but grateful. "Yes, please," he said softly. M.I.A. gently took his utensils and began cutting his meal into smaller pieces. "There you go," she said kindly. "That should make it easier." His face brightened. "Thank you." She smiled, then turned to the man sitting across from him. "Would you like anything else, sir?" He barely glanced up from his phone. "No, we're fine." His voice was curt, dismissive. M.I.A. bit the inside of her cheek, suppressing an eye roll. She had seen his type before, rich, busy, and completely disconnected from the world around them. She didn't know what their relationship was, but it was clear that the man had little interest in the boy's struggle. She stayed beside the boy for a few more moments, engaging him in light conversation as he ate. His name was Oliver, and despite his condition, he had an enthusiasm that shone through. He spoke about how he loved books, how he dreamed of traveling one day, and how he had a pet turtle named Maximum. M.I.A. found herself genuinely enjoying the conversation. She didn't notice the way the man had finally put his phone down, watching her with an unreadable expression. After a while, Oliver finished his meal, wiping his mouth with a napkin. "That was the best dinner I've had in a while," he admitted. "Thank you for helping me." M.I.A. laughed. "You did most of the work yourself." The man beside him finally cleared his throat. "Oliver, we should go." M.I.A. stepped back, nodding. "It was nice meeting you, Oliver. You take care, okay?" The boy smiled. "You too, Miss M.I.A." She returned to her wait, assuming that was the end of it, but as the two left, the man hesitated for a moment at the entrance. He glanced back at her, his eyes studying her as if committing her to memory. Then, without another word, he walked out, leaving only an unsettling sense of curiosity in his wake. The following evening, M.I.A. returned for her shift, expecting another ordinary night. The usual customers came and went, and the rush hours passed in a blur. But just as she was cleaning up a table, she noticed something strange. Oliver was back. He was sitting in the same spot, but this time, he was alone. No well-dressed man, no father figure hovering over him. Just him, quietly sipping on a glass of water. Concern immediately bloomed in Mia's chest. She approached him with a soft smile. "Hey, Oliver," she greeted. "Back for round 2? He grinned. "Maybe." She sat down across from him, lowering her voice. "Where's your dad?" His smile faltered slightly. His "around." M.I.A. frowned. Something about his answer didn't sit right with her, but she didn't press. Instead, she pulled out her notepad. "Well, since you're here, what can I get you?" Before Oliver could answer, the bell above the entrance chimed. and the man from last night walked in. Only this time, he wasn't alone. A pair of sharply dressed men flanked him, their expressions unreadable. They weren't customers. They were security. Bodyguards. Mia's stomach twisted. She looked at Oliver, then at the man, and that was when realization struck her like lightning. The suit, the presence, the security detail. She had seen his face somewhere before. Not in person, but on television, in newspapers, on the internet. The man who had sat in her diner the night before, the man she had barely paid attention to, wasn't just some wealthy businessman. He was Elliot Grayson, billionaire CEO of one of the largest tech empires in the world. A man who owned skyscrapers, industries, entire networks. And Oliver was his son. Mia's throat went dry. Elliot approached the table, his expression unreadable as he placed a firm hand on his son's shoulder. "I see you've made yourself comfortable." Oliver just smiled. "Miss MIA makes really good food." Elliot's gaze shifted to her. It seemed so. MIA shifted uncomfortably under his stare. What was he doing here again? Why had he brought security? And why did she get the feeling that something much bigger was happening right in front of her? Before she could ask, Elliot spoke again, his voice calm yet firm. "I'd like to have a word with you, Miss Carter." Mia's pulse quickened. This was no ordinary customer, and this was no ordinary situation. Something told her her life was about to change forever. MIA swallowed hard, feeling a strange tension in the air. The billionaire, Elliot Grayson, stood before her with an unreadable expression, his security detail lingering close by. This wasn't the kind of encounter she ever expected to have in her small-town diner. Oliver, still seated, glanced between the two adults, clearly picking up on the unease. "Dad, don't be scary," he said with a playful pout. Elliot sighed, rubbing his temple. "I'm not being scary." MIA took a deep breath, forcing herself to stand tall. "What do you want to talk about, Mr. Grayson?" Elliot gestured toward the entrance. "Somewhere more private, if you don't mind." MIA hesitated. Every instinct screamed at her to say no. This man, this billionaire, had the kind of power that could turn lives upside down. And yet, curiosity gnawed at her. What did he want with her? Was she in trouble for something? She glanced at her manager, who had been eavesdropping behind the counter with wide eyes. He gave a hesitant nod, silently granting her permission to step away from her shift. With a reluctant sigh, MIA untied her apron and followed Elliot out of the diner. Elliot led her outside, where a sleek black limousine was parked at the curb. The vehicle gleamed under the streetlights, its tinted windows hiding whatever luxury lay within. One of the bodyguards opened the door, revealing a pristine leather interior. MIA stopped. Are you planning to kidnap me?" she half-joked, masking her nerves. Oliver giggled, climbing into the limo first. "She's funny," he told his father. Elliot, unimpressed, motioned for MIA to step inside. "Just a conversation, Miss Carter." MIA hesitated for only a moment before reluctantly sliding into the seat. Elliot followed, and the door shut with a soft click, sealing her inside a world that smelled of expensive cologne and wealth beyond her comprehension. The limo purred to life, cruising down the dimly lit streets. For a few moments, there was silence. Then Elliot finally spoke. "You helped my son last night." MIA frowned. It wasn't a big deal. Elliot's sharp gaze met hers. To you, maybe, but to him, it was. Oliver nodded enthusiastically. "Nobody ever helps me like that. They usually just watch." His voice softened at the end, a sadness creeping in. Mia's heart ached. She could see it now. Despite all the wealth and privilege Oliver had, he was lonely. People treated him differently because of his condition, maybe even avoided helping him out of discomfort or fear of offending his father. She turned back to Elliot. "Is that why we're here? You wanted to thank me." Elliot exhaled slowly. "Not exactly." He leaned forward slightly, resting his elbows on his knees. "I want to make you an offer." MIA blinked. "An offer?" "I want you to be Oliver's private caregiver." The word slammed into her like a freight train. She stared at him, waiting for him to say he was joking. He didn't. His expression remained as serious as ever. "You want me to?" Leave the diner, move into my estate, and assist Oliver full-time, Elliot clarified. I've hired professionals before, but none of them have connected with him the way you have. And he likes you. Oliver beamed. I do. Mia's head spun. This wasn't just some side gig. This was life-changing. Working for a billionaire, living in his mansion, the kind of paycheck that could wipe out her mother's medical bills in an instant. She should have jumped at the offer. But something felt off. She folded her arms. You don't even know me. Elliot's eyes darkened, his expression unreadable. I know enough. The way he said it sent a shiver down her spine. Do you? She challenged. Because right now, it kind of feels like you're offering a total stranger a job just because I cut up your son's food. Elliot's lips pressed into a thin line. I don't make decisions lightly, Miss Carter. When something benefits my son, I pursue it. And you? You're good for him. MIA turned to Oliver, who was watching the exchange with eager eyes, as if silently hoping she'd say yes. Her chest tightened. The offer was tempting, but it also felt like stepping into unknown waters, waters that could swallow her whole if she wasn't careful. And yet, the thought of helping Oliver, of being there for him when no one else seemed to be, made her heart ache in a way she couldn't ignore. She licked her lips. What's the catch? Elliot raised a brow. Excuse me. There has to be a catch, MIA said. Nothing in life comes free. So what's the downside of this little deal? Elliot held her gaze for a long moment. Then, in a voice laced with something almost warning, he said, the only downside is that once you accept, you can't walk away. The weight of his words settled over her like a storm cloud. MIA swallowed hard, realizing, for the first time, that this wasn't just a job offer. It was something much, much bigger, and she wasn't sure if she was ready for it. The weight of Elliot's words hung in the air, thick and unshakable. Once you accept, you can't walk away. MIA studied him carefully. His posture was relaxed, but his tone, his eyes, told a different story. There was an edge to them, something that hinted at the kind of power that didn't just offer opportunities but owned them, a warning disguised as an invitation. She felt Oliver's hopeful gaze on her, but her gut told her that stepping into this world meant stepping into something she couldn't control. The limo rolled to a smooth stop. MIA hadn't even noticed they were moving. Take the night to think about it, Elliot finally said. My driver will pick you up tomorrow morning if you decide to accept. MIA inhaled sharply. And if I say no? Elliot's expression didn't change. Then you go back to your life, and we never have this conversation again. The door unlocked with a soft click. The decision was hers to make. She glanced at Oliver one last time. His face was filled with an innocent, unspoken plea. Then she stepped out of the car. The limo pulled away, disappearing down the empty street. MIA let out a breath she didn't realize she was holding. This wasn't just a job. It was a choice that would change everything. And she had less than 12 hours to decide. That night, MIA tossed and turned in bed, her mind racing. Elliot Grayson was offering her more money than she had ever seen in her life. Enough to pay off her mother's hospital bills. Enough to stop living paycheck to paycheck. Enough to finally breathe. But it wasn't just about money. It was about Oliver. She thought of the way his face lit up when she helped him, the way he had no one who truly understood him, and the way his father, a man who had everything, seemed incapable of offering him the warmth he desperately craved. Still, the warning in Elliot's voice nagged at her. What did he mean by not being able to walk away? By dawn, she had made up her mind, and as she packed a small overnight bag, she told herself, whatever happens next, I'm ready. The following morning, a sleek black sedan pulled up outside Mia's tiny apartment. A driver in a press suit stepped out, nodding to her. Miss Carter, he greeted. Mr. Grayson is expecting you. MIA slid into the backseat, gripping her bag. The city blurred past as they drove out of town, heading toward the wealthier district, a place she had only seen on TV. Skyscrapers gave way to massive estates, each one more extravagant than the last. Then, at the end of a long, tree-lined road, she saw it. Grayson Manor. The mansion was breathtaking, an architectural marvel of glass and steel, with towering columns and sprawling gardens. It didn't feel like a house. It felt like a fortress. The car pulled through the massive iron gates, and Mia's stomach flipped. This was real. She was about to step into a world she had no place in. But as the door swung open and Oliver came running toward her, excitement lighting up his face, she felt a flicker of reassurance. At least one person here truly wanted her to stay. Elliot was waiting in the grand foyer. His presence filled the space, exuding power. "Welcome, Miss Carter," he said smoothly. MIA forced a polite smile. "Guess I'm officially on the payroll now." He gestured for her to follow. "There are a few rules you should know." As they walked through the halls, past chandeliers, marble staircases, and walls lined with security cameras, Mia's unease grew. "You will be Oliver's full-time caregiver," Elliot continued. "That means assisting him with daily tasks, ensuring he stays on schedule, and accompanying him to his therapy sessions." MIA nodded. "Sounds reasonable." Elliot stopped walking. Then, in a quieter voice, he added, "You are also expected to keep everything you see and hear within this house to yourself." MIA frowned. "What does that mean?" Elliot's eyes darkened. "You'll understand soon enough." A chill ran down her spine. What the hell did I just sign up for? That night, MIA settled into her new room, bigger than her entire apartment, with a view that stretched for miles. It should have felt luxurious. Instead, it felt like a cage. As she unpacked, a knock sounded at her door. Oliver peeked inside. "Can I stay here for a bit?" MIA smiled, motioning him in. "Of course." He climbed onto her bed, looking hesitant. "You like it here so far?" MIA hesitated. "It's a lot to take in." Oliver nodded, playing with his fingers. "Dad's not a bad person," he said suddenly, "but sometimes he keeps secrets." MIA stiffened. "What kind of secrets?" Oliver bit his lip, then shook his head. "I don't know, but sometimes I hear things at night." MIA frowned. "Hear what?" Oliver looked toward the door, as if afraid someone might be listening. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he said, "Footsteps, in the halls. But when I look, there's no one there." A chill crept up Mia's spine. She forced a small laugh. "Maybe it's just the staff." Oliver shook his head, his face pale. "They are not normal footsteps, MIA. They sound wrong. And sometimes I hear whispers." Mia's mouth went dry. Oliver swallowed hard. "It's like someone else is here. Someone who shouldn't be." A slow dread settled in Mia's chest. Outside the window, the estate stretched into the dark, the night pressing in like a silent observer. And for the first time since she arrived, she wondered if she had made a terrible mistake. MIA lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling. Oliver's words replayed in her mind. "Sometimes I hear whispers." She told herself it was nothing, just a child's overactive imagination. A house this massive was bound to make strange noises. Maybe it was the wind, the old pipes, the distant movements of staff. But deep down, she wasn't so sure. A heavy silence filled the room, broken only by the faint ticking of a grandfather clock somewhere in the mansion. Then, just as she was drifting off, tap, 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 Mia's breath caught. The sound was faint, coming from outside her bedroom door. She turned her head slowly, heart hammering. The hallway beyond was dark, save for the dim glow of a nightlight casting long, eerie shadows. She held her breath. Was it Oliver? Maybe he couldn't sleep. She slid out of bed, careful not to make a sound, and tiptoed toward the door. Her fingers hovered over the handle. Then, the tapping stopped. MIA hesitated. Her pulse thudded against her ribs. Something about the silence felt wrong. With a deep breath, she cracked the door open and peered out. Nothing. The hall stretched out, empty and still. But just as she was about to close the door, a shadow moved at the far end of the hall. MIA froze. It was quick, so quick that she almost doubted she had seen it at all. A tall, dark shape, just barely visible in the low light, slipping around the corner. Mia's mouth went dry. Her first instinct was to tell herself it was a staff member, a night guard, a butler, someone who belonged here. But then she remembered Oliver's words. They are not normal footsteps. Slowly, she stepped into the hallway. The air felt colder here, as if the temperature had dropped the moment she crossed the threshold. She moved forward cautiously, listening. The house was still, too still. At the far end of the hall, where the shadow had disappeared, she saw something that made her stomach twist. A door. It was slightly ajar, revealing only darkness beyond. MIA had never noticed this door before. Had it always been there? Her instinct screamed at her to turn back, to pretend she hadn't seen anything. But something, curiosity, or maybe something deeper, pushed her forward. With a shaky breath, she reached out and nudged the door open. Beyond it was a staircase, narrow, steep, leading downward into the dark. A basement. Mia's fingers tightened around the doorframe. Everything about this felt wrong. She should go back. She should pretend she hadn't seen anything. But just as she was about to step away, a whisper drifted up from the darkness below. Soft, distant, calling her name. Mia's blood turned to ice. She stumbled backward, slamming the door shut, her breath coming in sharp, ragged gasps. Nope, nope, nope. Her hands trembled as she backed away from the door, every nerve in her body screaming at her to run. And then, a hand grabbed her wrist. MIA gasped, spinning around. It was Oliver. His eyes were wide, filled with something close to fear. You saw it, didn't you? Mia's heart was still racing. What is that door? Oliver swallowed hard. I don't know. Dad says we're not supposed to go near it. MIA glanced back at the door, her skin crawling. Has anyone ever gone down there? Oliver hesitated. Then, in a whisper, he said, They don't come back. The next morning, MIA found Elliot in his office. The room was as grand as the rest of the mansion. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a massive mahogany desk, large windows overlooking the vast estate. Elliot sat behind the desk, flipping through documents. He barely looked up when MIA entered. I assume you're adjusting well, he said smoothly. MIA didn't bother with pleasantries. I saw the door. That got his attention. He looked up sharply, his expression unreadable. What door? MIA folded her arms. You know exactly what door I'm talking about. The one at the end of the hallway. The one that leads downstairs. Elliot's gaze darkened. For a long moment, he didn't speak. Then he sighed, leaning back in his chair. I told you, MIA, this job comes with rules. Yeah? Well, maybe you should have told me I was moving into a haunted house. His jaw tightened. MIA took a step forward. What's down there? Elliot. He exhaled slowly, tapping a finger against the desk. Then, in a quiet, measured voice, he said, Some doors are meant to stay closed, Miss Carter. I suggest you remember that. MIA clenched her fists. And if I don't? Elliot's eyes met Hayes, cold and unwavering. Then you won't be leaving this house. Ever. A chill ran down her spine. This wasn't just a warning. It was a threat. And suddenly, MIA realized something terrifying. She was trapped here. That night, she couldn't sleep. Elliot's words replayed in her head. His threat. But it wasn't just fear that kept her awake. It was a door. The way it lingered at the edge of her mind, like a whisper she couldn't ignore. She needed to know what was down there, even if it was the last thing she ever did. MIA had made up her mind. She had seen enough to know that this house was hiding something. Oliver had warned her. Elliot had threatened her. But neither of them had answered the one question she couldn't ignore. What was behind that door? And tonight, she was going to find out. The mansion was silent. MIA waited until she was sure the staff had retired for the night. The halls were empty, the only sound the distant ticking of the grandfather clock. She slipped out of bed, grabbing her phone for light. Her bare feet made no sound against the polished floors as she made her way down the hall, heart hammering. The door. It was still there, still slightly ajar, as if waiting for her. MIA hesitated. Everything in her scream turned back. But she pushed the fear down and stepped inside. The moment she did, a coldness wrapped around her like a vice. She swallowed hard and aimed her phone flashlight down the stairs. The light barely penetrated the darkness. The air smelled stale, like damp stone and something else. Something faintly metallic. Blood? MIA shuddered but forced herself forward. One step, then another. The stairs creaked under her weight, each sound magnified in the suffocating silence. Then, a whisper, soft, faint, right behind her. MIA whirled around, phone shaking in her grip. Nothing, just darkness and the distant glow of the hallway above. She sucked in a breath and kept moving. As she reached the bottom, the space opened into a long, narrow corridor. The walls were rough stone, lined with rusted pipes. This wasn't just a basement. It was something older, something that wasn't meant to be found. At the end of the hall stood a massive iron door. Mia's pulse quickened. She pressed her hand against it. Cold, solid, locked. But as she pulled away, she noticed something. Scratches. Deep, jagged marks running along the metal, as if something had tried to claw its way out. Her stomach twisted. Then, a thump, low, muffled, from the other side of the door. MIA staggered back, panic flaring in her chest. And then, the doorknob turned. She gasped and stumbled back, barely suppressing a scream. The door didn't open, but something was on the other side, and it knew she was there. Suddenly, a hand clamped over her mouth. MIA thrashed, but a voice whispered urgently in her ear. Don't scream. If you scream, it'll wake up. Elliot. She stopped struggling. Slowly, he let go, his face grim. What the hell is going on? MIA hissed, keeping her voice low. Elliot exhaled, rubbing his temples. You just couldn't leave it alone, could you? MIA gestured toward the door. There's something down here. Something alive. Elliot's expression darkened. Yes. Mia's stomach dropped. What is it? For a long moment, he didn't speak. Then, finally, he whispered, My wife. Mia's breath hitched. What? Elliot leaned against the wall, suddenly looking tired. She was sick, not in a way doctors could fix. His jaw tightened. She changed, became something unnatural. Mia's blood ran cold. You mean? She's not dead, Elliot said flatly. She's not alive either. MIA shook her head, refusing to understand. Elliot continued, his voice hollow. I tried everything. Every cure, every doctor, every exorcist. But nothing worked. He looked at the door. The only thing left to do was lock her away. MIA swallowed hard. The scratches on the door, the whispers in the night, the thing that knew her name. Oh my God, she whispered. Elliot met her eyes. This is why I warned you. MIA, you should have never come down here. Mia's breath came in short gasps. Then, a long, slow creak. The iron door began to open. Mia's eyes widened in horror. No, 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 no. Elliot grabbed her wrist and yanked her toward the stairs. Run. MIA didn't hesitate. They bolted up the stairs, feet pounding against the steps as a low growl echoed behind them. Something moved in the darkness. Something big. They burst through the basement door just as a shadow lunged up the staircase. Elliot slammed the door shut, locking it just in time. Silence. MIA backed away, chest heaving. A single, slow knock came from the other side. Then another, and then a voice. Soft, familiar. Emma, let me out. Mia's blood turned to ice. She knew that voice. It was her own. MIA clamped a hand over her mouth, barely stifling a sob. What the hell was down there? Elliot placed a firm hand on her shoulder. His face was unreadable. You understand now, he said quietly. MIA didn't speak. She couldn't, because deep down, she knew the truth. She had stepped into a world she wasn't meant to see, and there was no walking away now. The next morning, Elliot sat across from her in the grand dining hall. A fresh contract lay on the table. MIA stared at it, barely registering the words. I'll double your salary, Elliot said. Full benefits. Anything you want. MIA looked up, her hand shaking. Why? His gaze was cold. Because now you know. MIA swallowed hard. She understood. She wasn't being offered a choice anymore. She was being told, stay, or you won't leave at all. Oliver's innocent face flashed through her mind. She thought of his laughter, his kindness, his loneliness. MIA picked up the pen, and she signed, because deep down, she knew some doors don't just open. They swallow you whole.